Okay, hey everyone. We are back here with the fifth episode of the Journey Hub. This is the second season, and we have a very special guest here with us. He is a graduate of Centennial College from Corporate Communication and Public Relations, and he has more than 10 years of experience in the industry, working across agencies, and he's currently, the Director Media Sales at Nar City Media. So we welcome you, Adrian. It's a pleasure to
Thanks.
have you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Excited to do this.
Okay, so we'll be starting with the question session. So, Darina, over to you.
Yes, so let's start with our questions. So first question would be about your experience. And we all know that, you got a lot of things that you've done before. So you got from the tournament director to media relations, then to programmatic, and now you're director of sales. So you've done a lot of things, but we all know that at some point of our life, we have a situation when we think, oh my God, I wish at that moment I did this. I wish I had known this. So what was that moment for you? And maybe what would you do about that?
Yeah, so I think the moment for me was I was doing PR for a small public relations firm, and I knew I liked media, but I didn't like what I was doing. So I said, okay, I like the industry. How do I pivot into something I'm gonna enjoy just as much or a little bit more? So I would say for me, ignoring that sort of formal corporate ladder where you go from a junior, then a senior, then a manager, then director, I kind of said, well, I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to jump around a little bit and see what makes sense for me before I decide that this is the path I need to go.
Yeah, so you've done so many things. Just a question, just following up on that, as I know that a lot of people, when they didn't get into industry yet, they're still trying to figure out what they want. What would you recommend to the people who doesn't know yet and they didn't start, for example, or in sales and marketing? What would be advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, just try it out. Just talk to some industry leaders, read the blogs, read the find the resources, and start trying to make sense of things and see if it's for you, right? If you pick up on it really quickly, well, that could be a good sign of things to come.
Okay,
That,
thank you so much.
that's good. That's good. Reason being, people think about that reading is experiencing things is very important than do reading things and all. But it's very important to read the blogs, to do something out of the box, to add on to that particular thing which makes you out of that particular lot. you know that's very important. And in addition to that, what you said, that follow your passion, that's quite important. If you don't know what you're going to do, then it's a waste according to us.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think it's okay not to know what you want to do. Like it's not to say that I'm going to be in sales for advertising the rest of my life. I don't know if that's necessarily for me. But what I do know is like I'm on a path where I'm constantly learning, right? And until I can't learn anymore, that's when I'm going to pivot. So it's all about growth. It's all about trying different things and learning more about other industries to see if you're actually interested in them. Go from there.
Yeah. So, I think that you must have uh, got a lot of success in your career for sure. But talking about success, let us talk about something that we all want to know, and of course, the audience would like to know about something that is related to your failure. So, what's that thing that you think that you have you think as it as a failure, and what did you learn from that particular thing?
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with my career growth. I failed to make a decision a couple times actually early in my career to leave the companies I was with. I've worked for some amazing companies. I've been so lucky, and some good companies. But for me, it's not always about the work you're doing. Sometimes it's about the culture you're in. So it's really I should have moved earlier than I did, sooner than I did, to get more exposure, more experience from somewhere else rather than like coasting a little bit. So I would say that's a failure because if I had moved sooner, I would have learned more quicker And that's really what it is at the end of the day for me.
What is this point when you realize that that's not the company I want to be in right now? Because we all know that a lot of people are staying in the jobs because it's paying money, and it's tough to quit if you know that this is like extra income, if this is like a freelance job, or if this is your main job and you're like, oh my God, I'm afraid to start this job search again, I will
Yeah.
fail. So it's very difficult to switch. So what would you think like actually make you stay or make you leave, and what is this point like for you?
Yeah, I think it still comes back to growth. For me, if I'm doing a job and I don't feel like I'm learning enough or learning fast enough, maybe I've learned all I can from that position, right? So it's time to either move within the company to a new position and learn different skill set, or maybe it's time to move companies entirely and learn from a different leader or get mentorship outside of the company that you're with.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, our next question is about mentorship, and what are the people who were very influential in your life, and how did it maybe impact the decision that you made?
Yeah, I think maybe it's cliche, but my parents were really big influencers for me. I mean, obviously, everyone looks up to their parents when they're young, right? And you see, as you start to get older, you start to realize some of the sacrifices that they made and how they got to the place in their career they did. I mean, both my parents have, phenomenal stories and, the classic sort of rags to riches, but, seeing them come from nothing and struggle and commit everything that they had, all their time to their kids, it was fantastic. So I have two sisters, there's three of us, and yeah, they were able to make such a positive impact on us that I think it just kind of made us who we were. My dad had a couple sort of failed attempts at entrepreneurialism. He wouldn't call them failed because he learned a lot from them, but that was really inspiring to me. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I started my own business 10 years ago. And I got rid of it. Actually, I sold it, 6 months ago. And for me, it was such a cool experience to watch that go. And the whole time I was kind of asking like, well, how did you experience, like, what did you go through? How did you do these sort of things? And then on the flip side, I already do a lot of leading and managing, and my mom was a teacher. So I took a lot of what she was kind of, applying from more formal practice. And I was able to apply that to, when discussing ideas and concepts and stuff like that. I think it's really important to kind of help, a different generation or those who work underneath you, direct report wise, and, give them a really clear idea of the direction that you want to go in. And I think from that side, I learned how to organize myself really well and have a clear message.
Quite interesting. People talk about different people, but parents, something that is very influential. They set the ground rules to you. They set that particular path where you learn so much from them. But at the end of the day, I personally feel that the kind of influence that they have, I second your every point and every thought that you have just said. That
Yes, and just to add on this, my mom actually started her own business last year, and I see her struggling a little bit too, but I know that that's going to be like experience she's going through, and this is a great motivation for me to start a business at 42, and now I'm trying to help her like with social media, and we both go through this together. And again, even like coming from other country and seeing your parents succeeding and trying and maybe failing sometimes, but trying and sacrificing so many things for me, for my sister, it's just so inspiring. And I think this is what shapes the personality. This is what shapes the, like, even, I don't know, our attitudes, our habits, our understanding of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's how you start. And if you have those positive role models, then, as I got older, I really was in awe of the things that they were able to achieve. It's hard to see it when you're young. But as you start to progress in your career, you really relate back to them a lot more.
Yeah. And let's move to the next question. Honestly, I'm sorry, we are kind of jumping from one topic to
That's okay. That's cool.
topic. So let's talk about your career. So what is this one thing, or not, or maybe one thing that motivates you to do your job, that motivates you at your job? Maybe if you want to share a little bit with us what you do for your job, like maybe everyday task. I saw what you had on LinkedIn when you have like spend time with your wife and your family, do this and this. So that was very interesting and very inspiring already. So I think we would love to hear more, and maybe just even a little bit about your business. How did you, if you don't mind sharing, it's just interesting to see how you were combining things. Was it only like one thing that you were doing without like the second full-time job, or how you were managing all this?
Yeah, it's kind of been a progression. I started my business, yeah, I think it was about 10 years ago, out of just sort of like sheer curiosity to see if I could actually make something happen. And I pivoted about 4 or 5 times as I went. I started, handling a lot of like um, clients' communications and social media. And I went from social media into like just online advertising, doing both digital buying and selling. And then I moved into, handling their ad stack. So on a publisher side, and I started working with small businesses, and it's definitely pivoted. And along the way, I got a lot of my inspiration from my wife, and we have a 3-year-old as well. He's probably outside the door, ready to kick it in any minute. But I definitely like look to them for inspiration in that, they have this totally other sense of me. They think of me as like this guy who's like constantly working, and sometimes it's a little bit of a guilt thing. So I try and remove myself and be like, look, these are the things that I'm doing for us, so we can live the kind of life that we want to live. And so there's that side of it, but also just like seeing how like happy they are, and like that's what motivates me to like keep going. Like they tell me, I'm doing the right things. If I'm, not going down the right path, or if I am, like they really do help me focus that, more so my wife, obviously. But yeah, I would say that's one of the things that kind of keeps me going. And I get a lot of inspiration from the people that I've worked with over the years. I've worked with both like small business owners and entrepreneurs, to people running almost Fortune 500 companies. So I've seen both sides of it. I love working with entrepreneurs. I just find that their dedication and their focus is unbelievable. It's one of the reasons I'm actually at Narcity. I just find that like the direction that this business is going, it's very interesting and agile. So we're able to kind of turn on a dime to decide, let's actually go this direction. And, I worked previously in some other companies that they've been focused on the same thing for the last 5 years with no change. So I think for me personally, I think I made the right move, because I want to work for someone that's a little more flexible. So yeah, it's good.
You talked about your wife, you're spending time with wife and your parents. It feels like you're so connected to your family, and that is so good to hear. People are always trying to find that kind of route where they are with there's a difference between their work and with their family. And talking about family, so I want to ask you something that maybe you must have faced these kind of situational questions for sure in your job, for sure, when you're giving an interview. So let us take a situation where it says, let's say after 150 years, there's no science and technology fails us, okay?
Yeah.
And there is anything that is left is there's a book that's to be written. So, and that's too about Adrian. So what would be the title for that particular book, and what would be the love for that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say the book is called Uncomfortable, because I think that's the best way to sum up like my career. I've never sort of just like sat and been in one spot. I'm always on the move, and I like to put myself in this situation where I produce the best work when I'm uncomfortable, when I'm not fully ready in my position where I have to learn things, where I have to sort of, change up my flow. I would say the context of the book is a choose your own adventure, because that's been very much how I kind of have gone about it. Like, oh, let's dabble in this for a bit. Oh, I didn't really like that. Let's try this. And that's really, I think, essential for, younger generations coming out of university, coming out of college, even coming out of high school. Like, what you want to work on, you don't know. You don't know if that's actually your true passion until you get into it. So yeah, I would say, like, I guess a blurb was, I never really want to settle. I think that's maybe when I'm dead and you have the book, I'll be settled. But sorry, that was a little
No,
more.
that's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. A reason being, since you have indulged yourself into so many activities, you have worked across agencies. So it's kind of sum up that I personally feel, so that, I second that everything that you've said just wrong. So now moving on, since you have worked for agencies a lot, and since you have already had a company that you just sold, you told us about that. So what do you think is, with the current situations going on, what do you think about the advertising and media with the upcoming trends that they will have in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a loaded question, because the good thing about this industry is it's changing daily. It's amazing. Like, anyone who says that they can actually tell you what's going to happen in 5 years is a liar, or they're a fortune teller, because, like, realistically, no one can predict what's going to go on. If you look to the sort of near future, we see a lot of interesting things happening where the third party cookie is supposed to disappear. Whether that actually happens, I don't know. But does that mean the birth of a unified ID? I don't know. It's hard to believe that Google closing its cookies doesn't mean they have another revenue stream in mind. They've got something in their back pocket, and I love them. I have a lot of close friends who work there, so I'm not knocking them. They're really good people. And I mean, for Narcity, I think a lot of what we're focused on is, how do we take that information and use it to our advantage? Is it, looking at contextual ads? That could be a big year this year for contextual. I think a lot of the agencies that are relying on third-party cookies are going to have to pivot. I think there's just a world of opportunity. Maybe we go back to how things were 5 years ago. I don't know. Who knows? That's a good thing about the industry.
Yeah, completely agree with that.
Okay, yes. Just wanted to say that, yeah, it's actually changing very quickly. And sometimes it's so fun, but sometimes you're just not able to catch and understand that trend or what's going on right now. So you need to be like on a top all the time, and you need to be able to monitor that. And sometimes it just drives you crazy. I don't know, maybe I'm just starting, but I don't know. So just continue with that. COVID-19 happened, and it had an impact on so many brands, and everyone, some of them took advantage of COVID, some of them didn't take advantage of the situation. But how's Narcity Media is impacted by that, and what do you think would happen in the future for them?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely took a hit, just like most Canadian publishers did. It was negative at first, but I think just like the brands did, everyone had to pivot and sort of figure out what the next step was. So for us, everyone was working from home already. Well, culturally, let's just make it work from home. That's our new policy. It's remote. Everybody work from home. We'll figure out the office thing when we can, but just put those sort of things in place now. And once things open up, fingers crossed, of course, it's sooner than later. That's when we decide, we can have a remote office space, as well as remote work, and then some office space as well, whatever that looks like, the WeWorks and all those sort of companies. And then from like a actual work standpoint, we've tried a couple different approaches. We just launched a self-serve platform to help small businesses basically buy from us really quickly, very affordably, and it gets their message out to like a local audience as well. So it's supposed to be for them to basically advertise directly to the people who are going to be using their services anyways. And during COVID, like they could really use that, right? Like just let us help you. And, that's what we're trying to focus on right now. We're giving away some free advertising and stuff like that for smaller businesses. So it's just our way. It's not really even giving back, to be honest. It's more so like, this is our priority. Like, this is what we should be doing. It's just the right thing to do.
And honestly, I think it's amazing how you're supporting and like just even supporting small businesses. And I know that I would even give an example of Ukraine. I know that for us, for example, um, our businesses, especially small businesses, they're gonna just shut down because not government, not people, nobody cares. And when you come here in Canada, and it was 2 years for me being in Canada and realizing how everyone's supporting each other and just, I don't know, focusing and trying to help, because thinking in the long term what's going to happen to the business is just so inspiring. And this is, I think, just a great example of how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So, I could not agree more than what both of you. I was just, in a thing that, you guys are speaking so correctly and so efficiently about the things that I daily feel myself. Like when I go out, I feel that, people respect you, people care about you, people ask about you. And, in this kind of thing, I was once told back in March 2020 by someone that, Canadian advertising industry is very closely bonded. And that's what we guys, I think, so look for. People helping out each other, small businesses. We are there for each other for sure. So, moving on with this thing to our last question for the day and for the session. So, for all the young marketeers out there, all the young grads, where once you would have been in those shoes for sure back in 2010.
Yeah.
So, what's that one's advice that you want to give to all those who are graduating from your program? So, that's the first thing. And the second thing, what advice would you like to give to the people or the young marketeers who would be coming out and would like to get into an agency or in a, let's say, in a public relation agency or a media agency?
Mm-hmm.
So, and considering all the factors of COVID-19 in place.
Yeah. Okay. So to answer your first question, so what worked for me anyways, I started a business, and what happened was right away, I had to figure out everything, the ins and outs, the administration, before I even really got into the product. Because, I knew what I wanted to build. I knew I wanted to build basically a PR firm that was going to focus on athletes and actors and artists. And, it was like a pseudo management, right? And instead, I focused on, okay, I need to understand what my branding is, where my website's going to go, how am I going to attract talent, and and once I started getting clients, how am I going to create my revenue streams? How am I going to understand my valuations and my numbers? It was super eye-opening, and it helped me carry that information into a new career where, I was working for other people, but I had all this background knowledge. So I knew how all the things connected. I'm like, okay, right, finance and sales and product and dev and et cetera, et cetera. Now that I know that, I was kind of doing all those things. I was my own HR. I was my own, development guy, and, realizing how difficult of a job, but at scale, of course. I think that was one of the things that was really helpful for me. So I would say, at least dig into it. And whether you want to start your own business, it is a beast, obviously, to get into, and you get out of it what you put in, for sure. And then to answer your second question, to kind of get into the agency world, I mean, there's a lot of job openings right now. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a ton of entry level positions. So those who are just coming out of school, and they don't look sexy, but they are the best things for you to start in, because you will get all the experience you will need in the first year that you can take with you to go somewhere else. And it sucks because I think in the agency world that happens really frequently, where you start off, you do a year, and then you become a little complacent, and then you move to another company for like 5K only more, right? It doesn't sound like a drastic jump just to change a whole company over, but that's happening more and more, especially in the agency world. But I think in terms of like getting ahead after you sort of start that first job, I think one of the biggest things is like, do the things that no one else wants to do, right? So I remember when I started, no one wanted to make the cold calls. I mean, when I started, I was basically like schlepping oatmeal. I was doing some PR for Quaker oatmeal, and I had to cold call reporters and say, "Hey, can we tell you about this new like flavor of oatmeal?" And it was kind of embarrassing, and my parents didn't understand what I was doing, and they thought I was literally selling oatmeal, which sounds not super exciting. But no one wanted to do it, and I got kind of good at it, and I saw sort of the fruits of your labor. And from there, I was like, oh well, I'll just take on things that people are like, I don't really want to do, and I got to learn about them and understand it, and that's how I grew, because I was taking things that no one else was going to do. And so they're like, oh, this guy will do it, give it to him. And then eventually I was taking on senior level work, and they're like, oh well, this makes sense now. So yeah.
This is a
That,
great actually advice, and I think I never heard about it, about this kind of strategy, and I think that would be very helpful for our audience out there. And actually, the quote that you have on your resume on LinkedIn and what you just mentioned, what you put in things, that's what you get in the end of the day. This is actually very true, and I think it's about effort too, and how much you actually want something right now. So yes, I really agree on everything you just said. And I think this is very, very helpful advice for people who are just starting their career, because it's very stressful. It's very, not maybe as difficult, but I would say just, you don't know what's coming. You don't know what's company going to be like. You're not sure what's going on at all. So thank you for sharing such important insight from your experience as well. So I'm sure it will be very helpful for our audience.
Awesome, my pleasure. Happy to talk about it anytime.
Just to add on, I just wanted to add on that we were on the same page, Adrian and me. I started my career back in India with the cold calling. I started as a research associate back at a small agency, and there I used to do cold calls. And after 3 months period, I realized that no, this is not my cup of tea, and I moved into outdoor marketing, and thereafter into digital and so on, kind of a thing. So I completely agree for the kind of things that for the cold calling, even my parents were like, "What you're exactly doing? We don't understand. Are you like completely selling that particular event?" I used to sell the events, so it was so insightful. In hindsight, I would like to say, thank you so much, Adrian, for doing this. It's been a pleasure to have you, and there was some beautiful and some justful insights that you told us today. And I'm pretty sure that all the people out there, and young marketeers, and whole of audience who will be listening to this would be, very happy about what they'll be listening because of the kinds of insights that you've told.
Awesome. Well, thanks for saying that. That's very kind of you. I hope, I hope, this is somewhat valuable for sure. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
I hope you enjoy your cup of tea and dinner. And I wish you a very happy evening and good night.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.